Thank you so much for checking out the Locked On NFL podcast on YouTube. You found us, and you're going to want to stick around with us for great daily content all off season long and all regular season long. Make sure you're subscribed, you like this video, and of course, you get those alerts set up. Anytime we drop content, you're going to want to know about it, especially because a guy like Tyler Rowland dialed in as far as the Tennessee Titans. You can hear him, of course, right here on the Locked On NFL podcast on Thursdays with his co-host, also my co-host, Alex Clancy. We do Cardinals together, and Tyler does the NFL show together. And Tyler, it was looking like a quiet offseason for the Tennessee Titans. There were some pretty big, noticeable voids for this organization. And man, what a difference a couple days makes. Austin Hooper, he kind of cast away cap casually for the Cleveland Browns. I wonder what they were opening up cap space for. And then, of course, you've got the trade after the LA Rams sign Allen Robinson. Robert Woods becomes available for a 6th-round pick. Talk about the moves from the Tennessee Titans and how it takes a team. A lot of people forget this, Tyler. The team that won the AFC regular season with the best record, they had that bye in the playoffs, improving, it seems like, offensively.
Well, that was absolutely what they had to do going into 2022. We heard from general manager John Robinson and head coach Mike Vrabel earlier in the all season during the combine that the goal had to be better around Ryan Tannehill, because of course there was a bunch of rumors about, the Titans should go get Rodgers or get Russell Wilson, which was never realistic if you were paying attention to the Titans. So the reality is Ryan Tannehill is going to be the quarterback in 2022. How do you make the offense better? You got to be better around him, and that's a fair, requirement. You look at the tight end position for the Titans last year: Jeff Swaim, Michael Pruitt, Anthony Ferguson, the worst group in the league. Wide receiver Julio Jones was great in theory, but he ended up just being that, a theory. Julio Jones wasn't on the field enough to really make an impact, and the Titans' second leading wide receiver last year was an undrafted free agent from 2020 out of Indiana, Nick Westbrook-Akina, who, if you're an NFL fan listening and you've never heard of him, well, I can't really blame you. So that was the dire, I guess, situation with the Titans pass catchers. So they had to make improvements, and I threw out some criticisms throughout the week as well. Felt like the Titans were maybe slow playing it a little bit too much. But again, John Robinson is truly one of the better general managers in the NFL. If you look at the roster that he's built, every GM has their hits and misses, of course, but he's built a really good roster that's contended for multiple years, has made the playoffs multiple years. And here he pulls two rabbits out of his hat. He goes out and gets Austin Hooper off the scrap heap, which, because Austin Hooper was released as a cap casualty by the Browns, he's not going to cost the Titans a compensatory draft pick if they were to get one. So he doesn't get factored into that formula, which makes the signing have that much more value. It's 1 year, $6 million. You draft a tight end, you groom him behind Hooper, and Hooper can give you, reliable all-around tight end skills this year. But the trade for Robert Woods is really the biggest move. Woods wanted to come to Tennessee, as reported. He felt like he was a good fit, and he's a great fit for the Titans. So to go out and only give a 6th-round pick in 2023 to get a 1-year chance at Robert Woods, who has no guaranteed money in his contract after this year, I mean, just an incredibly shrewd move. And if you look at Woods, you look at A.J. Brown, the Titans get a wide receiver in the draft to go along with Hooper, and then maybe a tight end in the mid rounds of the draft. Now you're looking at a significantly improved set of pass catchers around Ryan Tannehill. And in theory, that should make the Titans a more potent and a more realistic title contender than they were in 2021, despite having the number 1 seed in the AFC.
When we try to forecast what Woods' role will be in this offense, obviously wide receiver one that belongs to A.J. Brown, and absolutely
Right.
deservedly so, went absolutely nuts last season. Does he kind of fit where Corey Davis left off? He exited via free agency last offseason. Is that what we should expect from Robert Woods? And was he maybe, in your opinion, the best option that nobody knew about? When you looked at the free agent wide receivers, could you have dreamt up a better maybe wide receiver to fit than Robert Woods at this point?
Yeah, I think obviously the Titans are a heavy tight end offense, so they play the majority of the time in 2 tight end sets. They obviously play 3 wide receiver sets as well, and Nick Westbrook-Akina is 6'4", so he can operate almost as a pseudo tight end in 3 wide receiver sets. But the Titans like to be in 2 tight end, especially early. And yeah, absolutely, Robert Woods can slide into that Corey Davis role, what they'd hoped to get from Julio Jones. We got in splashes with Julio, but A.J. Brown is a guy who's going to run deep overs. He's going to run deep posts. posts. He's going to stretch the field vertically and take a lot of attention. Teams like to play man coverage and cover one and have that safety over the top watching A.J. Brown. We saw multiple times throughout the year that the safety would go with A.J. Brown, and that would open up the middle of the field on deep sit-down curls, deep digs over the middle of the field, shorter crossers, slant routes on the opposite side of the field from A.J. Brown. So the safety in the corner go with him, and that leaves a one-on-one opportunity over the middle of the field for the secondary wide receiver. Robert Woods has made a career of being tough, going over the middle, being really good route running in those short and intermediate routes, being reliable with his hands, and he's a super physical blocker. He's a willing blocker, which is probably more important to the Tennessee Titans coaching staff than any other coaching staff in the NFL with the way the Titans play offense. So Robert Woods has a chance to be that complement to A.J. Brown that the Titans have really been searching for. It's a great culture fit as well. Like I said, he wanted to come to Tennessee, so he knows what he's getting into, and hopefully that does give the Titans the ability to get A.J. Brown open even more, to give Ryan Tannehill some realistic targets to throw to, and that can kind of boost what they're trying to do on offense.
So Derrick Henry is obviously the biggest part of that offense. 2,000 yards just a season removed, and he had the foot injury last year. And we saw, a future trivia question. Adrian Peterson, name the teams he's played for. One of the most random is the
Right.
Tennessee Titans. Him and Randy Moss. It's like you would probably forget they played
Exactly.
for this franchise, but you know.
Add
Deont-
Julio Jones to the list.
yeah, exactly. Deontay Foreman filled in a little bit better than AD.
Mhm.
Is there a priority as far as, and how do you think they approach maybe the backup to Derrick Henry? You think they drafted running back this offseason?
Well, I think they do draft a running back, but here's the reality. In my opinion, if you're going to prioritize a running back behind Derrick Henry,
Mm-hmm.
it's got to be a complement to Derrick
Mm,
Henry, the pass catching back, the speed back, a guy like Dontrell Hilliard, who played pretty well for the Titans down. I know Foreman got all the attention because he was basically Derrick Henry light, but Dontrell Hilliard played pretty well in pass protection for the Titans late in the year. He catch the ball out of the backfield, return kicks. So I think right now the Titans are looking at Hilliard as that running back two to Derrick Henry, but I do think it is important to kind of cut down on Derrick Henry's carries this year and have somebody who can replicate, like Foreman did, replicate the style in which Derrick Henry runs. Derrick Henry can't have 30 carries a game for the first half of the season again. The Jones fracture was a load bearing injury because of
mm.
all the tread on his tires. And there's plenty of data out there. You have more than 1,500 carries in the NFL, you get around that number, you start to slow down. So if the Titans want to prolong Derrick Henry's career and make him as effective as possible for multiple more years, then I think they need to draft a running back in the late rounds or even an undrafted free agent. We've seen it's so easy. The Titans got Foreman and Hilliard off the street midway through the year. So finding decent running back production as possible without giving up valuable assets. So late in the draft, an undrafted free agent, get a running back who's maybe more of a heavy hitter, a between the tackles guy who can replicate that Derrick Henry running style. Give him 4 to 5 carries a game to reduce Derrick Henry down to 22, 25 carries a game, which is still a lot, but
Yeah.
it is Derrick Henry. And I think that would be best for everybody. So you have your complement and your speed back and your scat back in Hilliard. Then you have Derrick Henry, of course, who is the bull, but then you got to have somebody who can actually help him in that similar style. So I think drafting a running back would still be the right move, not only to, help spell carries, but maybe even groom a potential successor to Derrick Henry as we kind of were faced with his mortality in his NFL career last season.
Tyler Rowland breaking it down on today's Locked On Titans. Make sure you check it out as far as Robert Woods, how he fits into this offense, and kind of a
Bobby
new. There you
Trees.
go, Bobby Trees making his way from LA to Nash Vegas. All right, Tyler. Thanks, man.